Who am I talking with here?
Dan Linna at Northwestern University. I'm here in the law school and in the engineering school.
Yeah, we literally are.
So well, we're literally in the law school, yeah.
We're in the foyer of Northwestern Law School, which, to a small kid from a small town in Wisconsin sitting in Northwestern Law School, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, same with me. Upper Peninsula, small town. This is a big deal being here in Chicago.
Now, you didn't come, in direct route where you may have come from, law school, getting a doctorate in the law, the whole thing, teaching. What's been your route in the law? Where'd you go to law school? What'd you do afterwards? How'd you get here?
It's definitely been a different path than many take. I always knew I wanted to go to law school. I was always told that I should go to law school. I don't know if that's a good thing if you're told that as a kid.
Same for me.
Sometimes maybe it means you're a little too argumentative, but
that would end the argument.
But so I went to University of Michigan, and I decided I was going to work for a while before I went to law school, and I worked in information technology. It's kind of interesting because the work I was doing in information technology, a lot of it was designing custom websites, but also building enterprise information systems. I got a master's degree in public policy at the same time, very data driven, all this work. And I kind of was a little worried as kind of wasting my time actually before I went to law school. But so I left, ended up going to law school. I went to law school at the University of Michigan. I clerked for a year in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, worked at Honigman, large AmLaw 200 firm in Detroit. I loved it. I had a great career there. I was an equity partner there. It turned out that information technology career served me well. I started seeing all this innovation and things happening. I was able to start doing some of that stuff at Honigman, but then I was also teaching as an adjunct at the University of Michigan Law School. I started teaching negotiation, which requires you to be really client-centric, really focus on what the client needs, which gets into the innovation discussion, and then started teaching at Michigan State as an adjunct as well around innovation technology. That became a full-time gig. I left Honigman, and so I was there for 4 years, and I've been here now at Northwestern I'm starting my first full year. Last year I was here as a visitor, but my first full year here at Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, you did some things to inspire the students at Michigan State, and so did some Dean Haworth and some of the other professors. But my first experience with Michigan State was that students were blogging, and they were referencing my blog posts. And by them referencing my blog posts, I was seeing them or hearing them, if you will. And the next thing I knew, the students were inviting me to come to Michigan State. That's how I met you. So all of a sudden I get a call from Dan Linna. Kevin, I understand that you're coming to visit. Yeah, I mean, literally, it was like that. The students that were blogging invited me in Seattle to come to Michigan State. How'd that all come about? The students were blogging, they're using social media at Michigan State.
Well, you mentioned Dean Haworth, and she was great at Michigan State. She deserves a lot of credit there. She empowered Renee Kanaki and Dan Katz to launch Reinvent Law, and I really agreed with their overall mission there, and so much of it was about empowering students and telling students that you should build your own brand, you should learn about marketing, and in addition to all these things about technology and data analytics and process improvement, those things. And I carried that on. I was there pretty early with them. They'd been doing stuff for a little while, but then I started teaching with them. But this idea of getting the students to blog and be on social media and talk about the things that they were doing and make those connections, reach out to people like you, add value for other people by connecting with them, learning through social media. It really started with Dean Haworth, putting that in place and empowering Dan Katz and Renee Kanaki with them, and then more people started joining them as that started to get some traction.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, there were probably pockets of students blogging around the country, law students, but you guys really inspired some people to get after it. I mean, I think you were also doing things to help the students. I mean, I think I asked you one time, you must be walking up to students and saying, there's something there. I want to show you how you could do this or that, or if you could help them, maybe it would put them over the top and how they're building a brand as you described it. I mean, how did you go about all that?
I mean, I think it was really started with just a general message that I wasn't telling the students that they had to blog necessarily, but just the idea that you can do big things,
right?
And sometimes even at, I think this happens at all law schools. It can be a bit daunting as you learn about the law, thinking like, well, how am I actually going to have an impact in the world? But pushing people to set big goals and helping them figure out a framework for problem solving and to be able to achieve whatever they want. And I think that was an even more important message at Michigan State, because you start looking at the rankings sometimes and you can think like, oh, well, I'm at Michigan State, what am I going to do? It's like, what are you talking about? This is a heck of a platform. I mean, this is a Big Ten research university. There's like, you shouldn't consider yourself second to anyone. Like, I mean, get out there and there's a lot of different paths to accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
So in addition to being a professor, you're leading the career development, placement office, etc.
When I first joined Michigan State, yeah, right.
And I mean, I was back there one time to judge a social media contest.
Yeah. That was something we started out of the, again, Dean Howarth supported it, right? I mean, I said, hey, we want to do this social media contest. She could have very easily said, Dan, law schools don't do that. That's a little, but she was all for it. And, actually the credit union, Michigan State Federal Credit Union been giving us an annual gift. And so she used those funds so that we could run the social media contest.
Yeah, and I don't remember if that, how that related to my first visit and whatnot, but I remember coming in there and Dean Howarth introduces me, and I'm thinking, this is amazing, getting introduced by the dean. At that time, I think you ran a full day blogging and social media bootcamp.
That's right. Well, and it wasn't just, having Dean Howarth there was amazing. Having the dean come on a Saturday was great. But we also had the president of the Michigan Bar, Lori Budewig, was there, and Janet Welch, the executive director of the Michigan Bar. And we had several other attorneys. I mean, that is something we've really tried to continue too, and that was a lot of the roots of Reinvent Law, and I'm trying to continue that here at Northwestern with our Law and Technology Initiative, is we're very outward looking. We want people from outside coming in and helping us and interacting with our students. That boot camp was a great example, because how can you better sell law students than to show them that, look, the dean's interested in this, lawyers all around Michigan were interested in that, they see value in it, and so, well, heck, okay,
The dean was asking, all types of questions about Facebook, and now she's excellent in her professional and personal use of Facebook, and doing things on behalf of the school. Now she's out at UNLV. As far as Dan Linna, before I get to Dan Linna personally, let me ask you about students. What is your belief as far as the value of students blogging and using social media while they're in law school?
It's a huge opportunity that many students miss out on, and I had plenty of experiences at Michigan State where students really created a career path because of building that presence, sharing what they're doing, just talking about what they're learning. I've got some examples here at Northwestern of students doing it really well, building their network. I think that sometimes people think about it as something, it's not a short-term thing either, right? It's a career thing. It's about really thinking about, if you get this job and you go to one of the big law firms from Northwestern, Michigan State, sometimes maybe you can kind of feel like, oh, well, I've got it made. I'm going to this great place in Chicago or Detroit or where in New York. And it's like, well, that's really just the beginning. And so how could you use this platform to build connections, share, and build a community of people who you learn from, build that network, because you better believe it that's going to be really important in your future career as well. So if you actually want to become an equity partner in a big law firm, having that network is going to be really valuable, potential clients, but just people to learn from, people who know who you are. And no matter what you do after that, if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to go in-house, no matter what you want to do, that learning really just how to start building that network, that community. And the brand, maybe we've talked about this before, maybe when you call it building your brand, it sounds too commercial, but you got to be known for something. You want people to...
You do need to be known. There was a lawyer doing employment work at Baker McKenzie in Toronto, and she was told, as a senior associate, hey, it's great that you're here, but what are you going to do to distinguish yourself? And she decided to blog and made quite a name for herself. You were instrumental in the legal blog network that Lex Blog started, because I think you leaned over dinner one night and said, hey, it would be really cool if you could make blogs free for every law student in the country, or at least at Michigan State at that time. And I went back and figured out that was going to cost way too much money if we did it the way we did, but we changed it. So I thank you for causing that to happen.
Thank you for making it happen.
Because it's one of the things that we take great pride in, that any law student, any law professor, any legal administrator, if they want to begin to blog, we'll set them up and support them across the board so they don't have to have that uncertainty. as far as Dan Linna blogging, what's blogging done for you as a professor, first at Michigan State, now over here at Northwestern?
It's been really helpful in helping me reach more people, share what I'm thinking about, learn as I'm sharing, and then people can give me feedback and share. I have to be frank, I think one of the challenges I have is I haven't been doing enough of it. And I keep pushing myself trying to get in these cycles of wanting to share more. But I just shared a post a month ago where I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of computational law and technology. And I was hesitant to get my thoughts out there. But then I did it, and I got a lot of great feedback, and so I was so glad I did it. Every time I write a post, it's just like a shot of adrenaline, and good things come out of it. So it's something that I'm really trying to think about more, that I'm focused on a research agenda and doing more academic publishing, but I want to use my blog to cultivate those ideas, start breaking those projects down into smaller pieces, to further develop my thinking about things, write the articles, and then when I get the articles out there, write more about the articles to keep, so it's this virtuous circle.
And you're called upon to do traveling, and we just talked about that. How many people know Dan Linna today compared to Dan Linna 6 years ago, 7 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, right? And I think I, for the most part, was very much followed the traditional path when I was at the University of Michigan, and then I arrived at Honigman. And when I first started at Honigman, social media was a very new thing, and then the general advice for most people inside of law schools and inside of law firms is like, well, just don't be on it, right? Like, don't exist there. And and that started to change in my early days, and I realized real quickly I figured I need to be on LinkedIn, and I need to have 500 connections on LinkedIn to appear relevant and things like that. But it's tremendously helped me to grow my network. And it's not, I think people think that, it's funny because as lawyers sometimes we talk about, someone will have a book of business and they'll be like, oh yeah, well, Kevin's good at marketing. Like, what the heck's wrong with being good at marketing? Like, actually, we're all in the sales business, and it's just some version of it. Like when we're in front of a judge, we're selling our ideas, right? We're trying to connect with that person. And so I've gotten much more comfortable with this idea of sharing what I'm doing with the world, and trying to do it in a way that adds value for other people.
But I've watched you travel all across the United States. You've been in Europe, must be multiple locations. You said you just came back from Mexico,
Monterey,
Monterey, and then the day after you're in Monterey, you're on your way to New York or DC. I mean, so your name is very prevalent in the areas that you're passionate about it. How important is passion about what you're going to blog about, what you're going to talk about online?
I think it's incredibly important, and I mean, just finding your authentic voice, because I think, again, when I first started blogging or writing or doing things, I felt like this tremendous pressure that, well, I'm a big law lawyer and I want to hold myself out like a bit. Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, people aren't interested in this view of you that's not authentic. And so how can I really focus on the things that I'm really most interested in? I really try to push students to think about that. And I've got some great examples from Michigan State where people followed their passion, were working what they're most passionate about. And I love the book, The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman, and this idea of set these big goals, like really go for it. And you might end up pivoting, you might end up doing something a little bit different, but I really think we're, especially more and more now, we're entering a world where we've got to be continuously learning, and there's less and less division between work and leisure, and so finding something you really enjoy, like this is just, I love what I'm doing. I love it. I mean, it's not work for me, and so I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the stories with some of those students that went on and did really incredible things, go on and work in general counsel's office at a major corporation in their hometown, because they blogged and used Twitter. And another student decides that he wants to do a particular type of use of blockchain, in some very niche type of contract work, and is meeting a partner in a practice group in a major firm and being asked to come to the firm as opposed to applying. And you hear these stories, and you probably impacted you more than me, but part of it is like you're getting goosebumps because you're going, that is really cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm really proud of what many of the students that at Michigan State, and we've got students here at Northwestern, at Michigan, who has encountered just really kind of figuring out. And you mentioned the blockchain example. I mean, that was actually a student who was really most interested in being a sports agent of some kind, right? And pursued it with an amazing passion, found some of these other opportunities, right? And it's, I think that
How could you come up with the idea to say, I want to be a sports agent, but now I think I'm going to do blockchain and professional athletes' contracts and get online and start talking about this.
Right.
Get recruited to do a clerkship in London, at a London firm, and then get recruited by a large United States firm full time. Right. All because he figured out through us being there talking about it and teaching the idea of Twitter and Twitterless. And then putting up blog posts through LinkedIn. You have another student, using Twitter and then blogging. Fabulous stories. And I wish there were more stories, because I go to law schools and I see students not leveraging this form of it's publishing. But publishing that builds notoriety in a wide and open way and connecting with the influencers in their field, as opposed to maybe a very small insular circle of academic. Nothing wrong with that. But it isn't going to propel them to the heights overnight. Might get them a clerkship, but the clerkship is going to put them inside a firm. It may not really build notoriety in areas that they love.
Just a quick thought too, and what was so valuable about that is it really put me in a position to be able to help those students and other people in their network as well. When someone would say to me, hey, do you know a student who might be interested in working in this kind of law practice or an innovation role? If I could write to that person and say, yeah, sure, I could write back and say, yes, this student so-and-so, by the way, look at this blog post that they wrote on this. They're really passionate about learning about this topic and they know something about it. That's a great way to differentiate. So I think students sometimes think oh, well, who's going to read my blog? No one's going to actually look at it. But first of all, there's a long tail effect, and you can get it out there and people will find it. But then the way you empower other people in your network to be able to brag about, hey, look what Pat wrote. Look what
they did it. The fact that they did it. I mean, there's something intriguing about a law professor saying, look at what this student did. If it's a blog post, the firm's going to be thinking, oh, wait a second, that is something that is far different than the typical student does. They took the initiative to go out and do that. Might they be a little bit stronger in business development if they do get here? Because they do know what it means to go out and build a name and build relationships with people, because we need people like that. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you questions about Lex Blog, because I'll get killed when I get back. I mean, how has Lex Blog helped you as a blogger? I mean, what did it do? What differentiated between you just getting up there and saying, okay, I can have a blog and I can put it up?
Yeah, I think in a couple of ways. I mean, first of all, working with you and working with your team has been great. I mean, and you have real support infrastructure. It's set up in a way that it's designed for lawyers, right? To lawyers, there's some specific features like fast case plugins and things like that for lawyers. But being part of that network and being able to, I mean, you've multiple times featured my content when I've written about something that you thought fit in with what other lawyers. So being part of that marketplace, that network, and just the ease of which. There are a bunch of lawyers already there. I know you go to other places, right, and it's more generalized and you're not really sure, well, how can I do this in a way that, and understand how this network of lawyers actually works, sharing this information.
And when I started the company, I was scared to blog, scared to death. And then when I couldn't find anybody to help me, then I go, oh my God, am I going to start this thing? And then somebody, Tim Stanley, the founder of Fine Law, he and his wife, Stacy, he said, well, they're free, Tim did. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm so afraid I'll never start it. So does it have to look nice? Somebody tells me what I need to do. It has to be supported. I need to ask questions of somebody. Let's basically come up with something turnkey. So and the same thing for students, so that they don't have to worry about it. They can get a hold of us and get it up as fast as, I'd love to get it up even faster if some are a little bit slow. But it's an open offer to any students that obviously here, any students and law professors that you meet along the way, to let them know that they have the opportunity to blog.
Yeah, it is great having that turnkey experience, and then I'm really trying to assign projects in my classes that are conducive to just turning into a blog post, getting it out there. And I mean, what a shame that they have these brilliant students and they write something and I'm the only person who ever reads it, right? I want them to write things and then get it out there, put it up in a blog post.
They should, and you do have some students here that are doing okay. And I'm sure they beat themselves up by not posting frequently enough, but whatever that means. But they're doing something, and they're getting out there, and they're building a name. Even just that little bit more than everybody else can differentiate them for a lifetime.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, maybe I set the bar too high sometimes when I'm talking to students.
Right.
But even if you just publish one quarterly, right? You think about that. Start your one a year, write 4 blog posts each year, and before you know it, you got 12 when you're graduating and have a solid foundation built. So.
Keep setting the bar high, because I tell people the same thing. There's no reason you have to say I'm going to be average.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like everybody else.
Right.
You can set the goal very high, being a lawyer to accomplish great things.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right.